Hey, good morning, everybody. It is me again. I wanted to come on here to give you some of my thoughts as to the inauguration, which is 13 minutes away from taking place. Donald Trump has left Washington, D.C. as expected. He's not going to be at the inauguration of Joe Biden, breaking a century and a half of tradition, but quite frankly, does anybody really care at this point? Here are my thoughts. Yes, there are a lot of people who are glad he's gone. The vast majority of Democrats and a significant part of the Republicans are glad he's gone, and a lot of independents as well. I'm not going to talk about his legacy and all that, because I think that we will find out later on as time progresses what his legacy is. I think it's very hard to talk about a president's legacy immediately after that president has left office. It's tempting for the media to kind of put it into perspective and all that, but historically speaking, you have to give at least 20 years before you can really start talking about a president's legacy. And from a historical perspective, more like 40 years. So it's kind of, it's one of those things that's like, do you consider the 2019 Kansas City Chiefs to be the greatest team of all time? You kind of have to give some perspective as time goes on. You can compare it to other teams and how those players played later on in their careers and such. And could they sustain the success over time? Or were they just a one-and-done deal where they had one good year and then regressed quickly? But my thoughts about Joe Biden are this. I'm glad he won. I think he'll do a decent job as president. I don't think he's going to really do anything earth-shatteringly great as president. I think he will be fair dinkum, as the Australians say. I'm not expecting miracles here. The American people want stability. They want to get rid of this pandemic. They want to feel like that things are in control again. That they can feel like they can control their lives again without this pandemic over them. And I think the biggest reason why Donald Trump lost the election was because of the way he handled the pandemic. Now, I think he should have lost it by significantly more. I think that the reason the margin wasn't as big as it should have been was there were a lot of people who bought into the same fear-mongering tactics that Republican strategists have been utilizing for 40-plus years now, instead of debating the issues. And one of these days I'm really going to have to talk about my feelings about the fact that Republicans, when they do a campaign, generally avoid talking about the issues. Instead, they're always bashing their opponents. Democrats aren't necessarily entirely innocent of that either. But in general, you're going to hear more Democrats talking about policies, what they want to do, than Republicans. And Republicans generally tend to only talk about cutting taxes, only talk about abortion, and maybe gay rights, although I think that's kind of becoming less and less for the simple reason, I think, that they don't think they can win with it anymore. By the way, Joe Biden has taken the oath of office, although technically he does not become president until 12 noon Eastern time. That is about a little over 8 minutes to go now. And then he becomes president. I'm not expecting like some great age after a dark age like we've had. And when I mean by dark age, it's like, could you imagine 8 years ago or 12 years ago when Obama took office that people would be in such a frenzy? Now, I know some right-wingers were not happy about Obama winning the presidency. But this is different. That was a huge deal. That was the first African American to become president. This is just another white guy being president. Now, there are people who go, well, he's old. Will he serve a second term? I know pretty much he's not going to serve a second term. I mean, that's pretty much almost a given right now. He's not going to serve a second term. And even if his health was good, I think he probably wouldn't want to serve a second term anyway. This is stability. This is putting things back on an even keel. Now, aside from the pandemic stuff and the economic recovery package that's going to come, that we all know about, it's going to cost a lot of money, as if we haven't already spent a lot of money on this thing. He's not really going to rock the boat a lot. I think you may see some movement on health care. I think you may see... there are going to be some things that some right-wingers are going to go, oh my God, look how crazy it is. He's not going to do anything outwardly radical. That's just not in his nature. He is, by definition, not conservative, but a moderate Democrat with some liberal leanings and some conservative, basically middle of the road. Now, the interesting part comes 4 years from now, when we have another election. Will Kamala Harris run then? Or will she decide to, she may, there is the realistic possibility that she could become president if Biden decides his health does not allow him to stay president, or he may have something come up health-wise, or let's face it, he could drop dead. I mean, he's up there. But the same risks were there for Donald Trump. So this isn't exactly, we had two 70-year-olds running for president of the United States this past year. And I really, really think that hopefully in the future we get back to the tradition of having late 40s, 50s, early 60s people run for president that have the youthful vitality to do the office. Now, the presidency, you don't necessarily have to be the most, oh my God, get up and go, blah, 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 hyper guy, like Mojo Rawley in WWE. But you have to have the intellectual ability to do the job. You have to have the ability to delegate to the right people, to have the sense of who you want who you want working for you in that office, to where you can trust them with the decisions because in the end, the buck stops for the president no matter whether or not he wants it or not. And it doesn't really matter. Because I really think that in the end, I think Biden will be considered a decent, he was all right president. He's going to get us through the pandemic, which he'll probably be remembered for. And presidents, he'll take credit for it because he's a politician. Let's not forget one thing. Joe Biden's a politician. Let's not deify him. Let's not make him out to be something that he's not. He is a politician of the Democratic ilk. He will go for Democratic traditional establishment programs, blah, 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 blah. He's not going to shake the earth, okay? The next big election will be the earth shaker. Now, what happens then, we'll have to talk about another time because I really want to think about that because that's the really big one. Will he run again? I doubt it. There's always a possibility he does. His health may be really good. 4 years from now, he may decide, hey, I'll run again. But it'll be basically to where, hey, I'm going to run again. But if anything happens to me, we got Kamala Harris here. And it'll be more of a showcase for her than just for him. And sometime in the second term, he may decide to hand the ball over to her and let her run with it, you know. But here's the thing. There are a lot of Democrats right now who are celebrating Biden's victory. A lot of independents as well, maybe, and more than a few Republicans, from what I've gathered on Facebook and Twitter. Here's the thing. I'm not celebrating this. I'm happy that Trump's gone. Don't get me wrong. I've not been over the flat of him, but I'm not exactly ecstatic that Joe Biden is taking office either. It's more of a sigh of relief that it's someone that I can not have to worry about turning on the news and going, oh hell, what did he do this time? I expect that things will slowly start to simmer down. You're going to see, but it won't be easy. You're going to see some prosecutions. You're going to see some investigations, what Trump has been doing. You're going to see an investigation about right-wing militias and all this because of what happened 2 weeks ago today. It's going to happen. It has to happen. And it will be uncomfortable. This is going to be a very bumpy year with the potential of being even worse than last year. But I think by the end of this year, we will be okay. And I think that the economy will start turning around. The pandemic will be slowly starting to go behind us. People will be back out and about, going out in crowds again. And there'll be that sense of accomplishment, whether fair or unfair, that we will have for beating this thing. Now, I will say this. We can't just jump on the bandwagon just yet and say, and by the way, let me give him, yep, he is now officially President of the United States. It's 12 o'clock. He is now officially President of the United States by the Constitution. So, hurrah, hurrah there. Okay. But, you know, here are some of the things I want to see. If I were president, first of all, you got to have lobbying reform. Period. That is, and we're not going to get it. You know, it's just going to be a different bunch of lobbyists going. They're going to have precedents in D.C. It always happens when there's a change of party and all this. If I had my druthers, I would have strict lobbying. Limitations. Everything has to be open. And if you hide any kind of lobbying, that is a felony on the federal level. Your ass goes to prison. Plus a big fine. Great. My thing's going to be delivered tomorrow. I was hoping for it today. Oh, I just had it pop up on there. I had something I had planned to be delivered today. It turns out it's going to be delivered tomorrow. Well, I hadn't planned to be delivered today. It's just originally the thing said it was going to be delivered today. Now it's going to be delivered tomorrow. Dadgummit. Anyhow, I get back to the gist of my argument. We need lobbying reform. We need to have where it's open, where it can be scrutinized by the public. And we are desperate for that, ladies and gentlemen. We are very desperate for lobbying reform. And if we don't get lobbying reform, we're going to continue down this spiral path of where our democracy is just done. I mean, it's stupid. It's stupid to have to go through this every 4 years, where we know what we need, and it's this unprecedented access to government, and it's always been there, and always will be. It's just that now, as time goes on, it's more and more well hidden, because the media isn't looking at it like they should, and in some cases they're complicit with it. So that's what really bugs me, is the fact that there's so many people in the media who are complicit with it. But I digress. The second thing, we need an amendment to the Constitution to allow for campaign finance reform and limitations. The Citizens United Supreme Court decision has been the most destructive decision that we've had in this country in modern times, because it has taken politics away from the old school of debating ideas to where now it's basically how much money can you spend and how much on a media campaign, where there's no accountability for truth. I have said for many years we need independent, nonpartisan electoral commissions to run elections in this country, to get rid of gerrymandering, to set the districts according to traditional regional areas, to where there is as close to a fair balance of representation, to where every party at least has a theoretical shot to make every election contestable, theoretically, to where no candidate can be just considered safe. Do it like they do in England and Canada, and periodically review, say every 20 years or so, the boundaries, and in the next election you change the boundaries again, instead of every 10 years. Another thing, I'm all for free speech. But when you're blatantly lying to people, and it's obvious to people that know what you're talking about, that you're blatantly lying to people who don't have the time or the will or the skill to do the research and to find out that you're lying to them. Just having fact-check websites say, hey, this guy lied to him. Well, you see what Trump and his folks are doing. They're saying the fact checkers are automatically liberal. They're biased. Well, that's because there's no real punishment for lying in a political campaign. If I'd been running for president and stated that Donald Trump sold us out to Russia, China, and everybody else for the highest, and produced fake evidence. Didn't produce fake evidence, but basically said that I have proof, but didn't produce any proof. And yet people bought into it. There's no penalty there right now. This goes for both parties. They both do it. The Republicans are just more blatant about it, because generally they know their policies aren't going to be as popular to the voters, so they concentrate on attack, and making themselves look tougher by attacking. And they know how to manipulate public opinion. That's been one of their strengths for a long, long time, is they know how to scare people. Now, if we had what they have in Britain, which I'm not sure exactly what the name of it is, I think it's Oxfam or Ozfam, whatever it is. Basically what that is that it regulates advertising, regulates broadcasting to where you can't just simply make false claims and get away with it. There are penalties. You either have to fix the problem or you are penalized by fines or by being suspended from airing commercials or whatnot. It's an interesting thing about that rule in England is that it's actually done pretty good for themselves, but it's not perfect. There were blatant lies about Brexit, and I, in my humble opinion, think that it's going to come back to haunt Britain because they were lied to about Brexit. And in many ways, here's the reason I think that. The people that were behind Brexit are basically saying, well, we can't re-vote again because they don't have the confidence. And they feel like that they got away with it, and they're going to basically, no, the people have decided, we can't let them go back to the polls again. If they were fully confident in their case and in their cause, they'd go, okay, sure, we'll vote for it again, one more time. They know they'll lose because people have seen it. Now, yeah, the Conservatives won the election last time, and that could be theoretically seen as a referendum, but that was because people were tired of it. They just wanted it done. And I think that in hindsight, it will, once people have realized that they're not getting the benefits they were promised, and instead it looks far worse than it actually was. Because to me, Britain was a leader in the EU. They were the controlling check to France and Germany's power in Europe. Now that's gone. And now France and Germany can basically have a major say in how the EU is run. I think it'll become more federal. I think it'll be to the detriment of the smaller nations, where if Great Britain was there, they would have had the ability to defederalize the EU eventually by rallying the smaller nations to checking the power of countries like France and Germany, and to an extent Spain and Italy. But we shall see about that. But back to the point. We need accountability in government. Big time. The main reason people don't like paying taxes isn't so much about the idea of paying taxes, it's the fact that they feel like their money isn't being well spent. You go to Scandinavia, and they like paying taxes because they feel like that the money they're paying is being spent in a proper way. They see road improvements. They know how good their healthcare system is. They know how good their educational system is because they see it. They see the evidence of how their government is performing. Where here, we're constantly complaining about bad schools, bad roads, bad this, bad that, because we don't have the accountability in spending in our government. But instead of actually demanding that, we just say, well, let's cut taxes. Cut spending, cut taxes. But yet we still want better roads, we want better education, blah, 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 blah. There's a reason for that. It's not accidental. It's because we've allowed private enterprise have way too much influence on government policy. Now, I'm perfectly fine with private public enterprises from time to time, as long as there's a lot of accountability and basically we can see what the hell's going on. When it becomes a problem is when you see issues where there's kickbacks, where there's graft, where there's obvious corruption, and, it's as plain as the nose on your face, basically. My biggest concern, and I think it should be for any taxpayer, is that when you pay your taxes, is that you're getting your bang for your buck, and we're not doing that. We demand to get our money's worth when we buy something from Walmart or from Amazon or whatnot. Should we not expect the same thing from our government? We should. The problem is there are people who want to take away government services so they can make money off of them. That's why you've seen so much about charter schools and all of that, because there are people who want to make money off of that. That's why there's such a vitriolic response to getting rid of private health care, because there's money to be made. And the fear is that people will like single payer health care, like in Australia, like in Canada, like in England, like in other countries, like in every other industrialized country in the world except us. If we have Medicare for all, and it's there, and people can go to the doctor, not have to worry about a huge, gigantic bill, people healthier. And I've been saying this for a long time. If we ever were to get that, which I have my doubts we'll ever do get it, but if we were to get it, I guarantee you this: it would be a boon to business. Because guess what? Excuse me. Sorry, I did not mean to burp there. I hate my life sometimes. I hate this body sometimes. Jesus. Basically, it would save businesses money because they wouldn't have to pay so much in health insurance. And they could pay their employees more, theoretically speaking. I can go into why that businesses are making tons and tons of money, and yet they're complaining about the minimum wage going up. Speaking of that needs to happen. Not overnight, but I would say over the course of the next 6 to 8 years, we go from $7.50 to $15 an hour, or something close to that. You don't have to really look too far on the internet to find studies about how the minimum wage is performed compared to cost of living increases and productivity over the last 40 years. From the Second World War all the way to 1980, the minimum wage kept pace with cost of living and productivity pretty much. After 1980, coincidentally the year that Ronald Reagan won the presidency, wages effectively became stagnant. And I'm not just talking about minimum wage. I'm talking about pretty much everybody that's, unless you're making $30 an hour, you're not making as much as you probably would have been 40 years ago in the same job. That is a simple statement of fact. The job I have now didn't exist 40 years ago. But the job I had before at West Rock, I guarantee you that the job I had like it was 40 years ago, the person in that job had a better standard of living than I had, was able to bring home more money, and could save more and could spend more. Now, even though the amount of money is more, because of inflation. And here's the thing. You hear the argument from the right, well, if we raise minimum wage, prices will go up. Prices have been going up anyway. The last time we had a minimum wage increase was late in the George W. Bush administration. Was it 2006, 2007? That's at least 13, 14, 15 years ago. That's the longest I've known us going without an increase in the minimum wage. And before that, it was almost a decade from when it raised from the 80s. So you're talking about two major increases in the course of almost 30 years. Two. Both of them were over the course of 2, 3, 4 years? Something like that. So I know people who have small businesses. And I know they're going to get hammered when these wage increases come up, minimum wage increases come up. It's going to happen, okay? How big of one we're going to get, we don't know yet. It may not be $15. It may be $12. It may be $10. But the fact of the matter is that we have to start increasing wages in this country. At the very least, to have it to where you have meeting the cost of living in this country. Especially consider how rents have gone lately. It's insane how they've gone. And it's amazing that people will do that. It's crazy. So yeah, it's insane. It really is. So yeah, the White House account has not updated yet. I just happened to get a pop thing on Twitter. I'm gonna check the POTUS account. Has that changed over? Nope. It is now got 1.2 million followers. It started up today when the transition took place. So yeah, I am. So now you can actually read it without going crazy. There's only one tweet so far. President Biden's, this is the first tweet on the POTUS account. Folks, this will be the account for my official duties as president at 12:01 p.m. on January 20th. It will become POTUS. Until then, I'll be using Joe Biden. And while you're here, follow FLOTUS Biden, Senator Kamala Harris, which will be changed, I'm sure, to the Vice President and Second Gentleman and Transition 46, blah, 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 blah. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. I mean, it's a free country. But, yeah, I don't think we're going to have to worry about 3 a.m. tweets from Biden, okay? He will be asleep at 3 a.m. unless something, God forbid, happens to where he is needed to wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning, okay? Oh, that to me is like, it's one of those things that it's less about policy and more about the fact that I don't have to worry about hearing about him all the time on the freaking news. Yes, he will be in the news quite often. He is the President of the United States. Regardless of which party it is, regardless of who they are, they're going to be in the news. But there will be times where you don't even hear him in the news. And that to me is going to be wonderful. Because there won't be the combativeness they had under Trump. Trump's battling everybody. The problem was Trump was battling everybody, trying to act like he was strong. The reality was he really wasn't. He was being a jerk. He was trying to be a bully, and it failed. Now he's out of office. Now he's no longer president. And, yeah. But, and these right-wingers are going, oh, it's going to be the worst thing. No, it's not. Was it the worst thing Obama became president? No. Obama got us out of the worst economic crisis we'd had since the Great Depression. That is a simple statement of fact. Now, granted, there was a lot of bipartisan support for that, and in retrospect, some of it may not have been as good as it would have thought. But the fact was, our auto industry was about to crash. The airlines were in trouble. Had he not done what he did, we may still not be recovered from the 2008 economic crash or economic collapse, whatever you want to call it. But to me, it's like this. Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm not happy that Trump's out of office. But I'm also going to sit here and tell you that I'm not jumping for joy that Joe Biden's president either. Yes, I'm happy he's president. I'm content that he's president. But I know that the man has faults. I know that there are going to be policies I don't agree with him with. And I'll be honest with you. I really wish we had a younger person in there, just like Joe Biden, just younger, that could heal the nation from what we've been seeing. And it's going to take some time. You're going to have people who are going to try and go crazy because Donald Trump ain't president anymore. But here's what I think is going to happen over the course of this next year. You're going to see the truth finally come out about what Trump's really been up to. And it's going to erode away at his base. Because they're going to realize, not all of them will realize this, maybe not even a majority of them realize this, but enough people are going to realize this that it will take away his effectiveness. First off, when they finally release his taxes, when you finally start seeing his financials and realize he wasn't what he said he was. And that's going to be painful for a lot of folks who supported him, because they're going to go, well, I thought he was a great guy. I thought he was this genius. No, he wasn't. He wasn't. You thought that he was something he wasn't. And unfortunately, this isn't anything new. You've been lied before. You've been lied to before. And here's the thing. Here's the thing. He can't run away from it anymore. He can't hide from it anymore, like he did when he was president. He now has to face the music. He didn't pardon himself, thank God. He didn't pardon his family members. Did he pardon enough people to where they'll keep quiet? Of course, the problem with being pardoned is you can't use the Fifth Amendment. And that, just because you're pardoned does not mean you're pardoned from future crimes either. Let's say you were pardoned for a particular crime, but you're asked to testify and you lie under oath. That means you're going to be charged with perjury, and that pardon doesn't do you any good because you committed that crime after the perjury. It's going to be interesting what happens. So Trump's still going to be around. You're still going to hear his name and all that. But it may not be to what his followers like. And I think the next year is going to be interesting, to say the least. This year is going to be interesting. Like I said, I'm not expecting any miracles. All I hope for is for the pandemic to be gone and the economy to start to rebound. And to where I'm either back at my old job, which I'd love because I like the people I worked with there. Well, not perfect, but I liked it. Or at a similar job at another place. I sure as hell don't want to go back into retail. I want something that's as close to my old job and pay as I could. I know I'm not going to get it with the pay I'm getting right now for what I'm doing right now because I'm getting paid way too much, but there's no benefits. It's a part-time job. But, you know, it is what it is. But let's temper our expectations for Joe Biden. There are a lot of folks on the right, on the left, who are jumping for joy that Joe Biden's president. There are a lot of folks on the right who are mad as hell about it, or depressed as hell, or who are thinking the sky is going to fall. It's not going to do that. No, not neither way. The economy will get better. The last two Democratic presidents have had to rebuild economies that were in recession from Republican presidents. We're now in recession. There will be a stimulus package, which we saw in 1993 and we saw in 2009, which helped eventually build the economy back up, which weren't particularly politically popular because of they did result in the Democrats losing the 94 and 2010 midterms, even though in 94 there was the House bank scandal, and in 2010 we had the Tea Party crap, which is where we're at right now because the Tea Party was basically AstroTurf. Wasn't grassroots, it was AstroTurf. Anyhow, I am not getting my hopes up too much. I'm keeping my hopes minimal. I'd like to be surprised. All I want is for this pandemic to be done by the end of the year, and that the economy starts showing signs of coming back. Because we're in a mess right now, folks. You know, and Biden knows it. His team knows it. The problem is, can they actually do anything about it? That remains to be seen. But Trump's gone. He's no longer president. That makes me happy. And I think in the end, the people that will support him, some will never see the light, but some others will. And they'll realize, you know what, that was a bad idea. And this talk about Donald Trump starting his own political party, don't look too much deeply into that. He might do it, but as much as I don't like money in politics, big money in politics, I know how the way the world works, okay? I wasn't born under a cabbage patch. Or in a cabbage patch. If he were to form his own political party and try to split people away from the Republican Party, I don't think he's going to get the funding to sustain it long term. Because a lot of the die-hard Chamber of Commerce folks are always going to stay Republican. Or if not that, they're going to go Democrat. Because being Chamber of Commerce generally means you're part of the establishment. So, it is time for us to realize that, you know, Donald Trump is all bluster and not a whole lot of steak. Okay? All sizzle, not much steak. Okay? I mean, some of us knew it from the very beginning that this was not going to go well. Okay? We told you this wasn't going to be good. Am I expecting a whole lot from Joe Biden? Not really. That's because I don't want to be set up to be disappointed. It would not surprise me if he doesn't make the whole term. It would not surprise me that 2 years from now, Kamala Harris is president and Joe Biden's retired or may not even be with us. But the fact is, it's the stability. To kind of bring stability back to things. And then we can work on the bigger problems. It's getting this pandemic gone. Now, some would say, well, if it wasn't for the pandemic, Donald Trump would have won again. I don't think so. It would have been closer. But I think the Trump fatigue will have still have been a problem because people are sick and tired of hearing about him. Even Republicans were tired of hearing about him. So I think he would have lost anyway, despite the pandemic. The reason that Biden won the election by as big of a margin as he did was because of the pandemic. In my view, he would have won the election anyway, but it would have been a lot closer. And I will say this, there would have been the possibility that Trump would have managed to find a way to succeed, but the odds would not have been that great anyway. But Biden, I think, would have still managed to find a way to win. But the thing is, if the pandemic hadn't happened, Biden would have been out campaigning a lot harder. So there's a possibility that he could have won even bigger. That is a possibility. We'll never know. But I think right now what you're going to see is Wall Street's going to regain confidence in the government. They're not going to see the kind of dramatic shifts between what the president's thinking today and all that. There will be changes because any politician worth their salt does pay attention to the polls. It just depends on how much they change. That's the problem, according to the polls. So there is wisdom in staying the course at time to time. There's also wisdom in going, you know what? The public ain't with us. We need to change. Let's change. Okay. Well, I'm going to get off here and go and try and enjoy the day without really paying much attention to the inauguration because I'll let others celebrate it. I'm rightfully skeptical. I thought back in '93 when Bill Clinton was inaugurated that it was going to be a major, major change. Didn't happen. 2009, I was more realistic. I wasn't expecting this massive change that people were thinking was going to happen with Barack Obama, and it turned out I was right. So I'm tempering my expectations for Joe Biden, okay? I ain't expecting the world to change dramatically, but I think we'll be better off in the long run. Anyhow, that's it for me. Y'all take it easy. Good night, good luck. May the good news be yours.